All right, so first stream of 2021, I'm going to be doing something inside of Adobe Animate, and we're going to work with Panoramic VR and setting up a background. I'm going to make it kind of New Year's themed, I think. So to actually go ahead and do that, we're going to create a new document here. So I'm going to go to More Presets, or you could go to Create New inside of Adobe Animate. Either one is going to take you to the New Document screen. And from here, you want to go to the Advanced tab. This is the only way right now that you can actually get to the beta platforms. You scroll down to beta platforms here. You can see VR 360 beta, VR Panorama beta, and Webgl Standard, Webgl GLTF Extended. So there's a couple things here that we can do. I'm going to choose Panorama beta. And the difference between the 360 and the Panorama document types is that the 360, as you can see here, is just like a sphere. And you're inside of the sphere in the very middle. And then you can look around, and a texture is applied to the inside of the sphere just everywhere, 360 degrees. With Panorama, which is what we're looking at today, it's going to be much more like cylinder. So it's like there's walls, curved walls all around you, like you're inside of a tin can, and you're just right in the middle, and you can look around all around, but you can't look up, you can't look down, just from side to side, and it goes around in a continual circle, right? So what we want to do is actually create a new VR Panorama document, and there's a couple ways to do this. First I'm going to show just doing it by default here. So my width and my height, 550 by 400. Let's go ahead and hit create. This is going to create a new VR Panorama document for us. And as you can tell, it doesn't look all that different from other document types inside of Animate, right? So we've got our stage in the middle, we've got our pasteboard around it, we have a layer, and we have a timeline and properties panel and all this other stuff. So there's a couple ways of actually creating content for VR textures in Animate. One of those ways is to actually go through and draw out your content, which is what we're gonna do today. This is gonna be our focus. But before we do that, there's other ways too. So like, I've got this image right here, and it's a panoramic image. I'm just dragging it from my desktop right onto the stage, and it comes in. So it is the panoramic image of a lake or a pond that's very close to my home. And what I'm going to do is, you can see here, the position and size, it's 5871 by 1000, so it's pretty big. And panoramic images tend to be very long and short, right? Inside my document properties, the document's only 550 by 400. You can see the stage border right here, right? So let's go ahead and hit match contents, and that'll match that. So now my width and height of my document, if we fit in window, is the actual width and height of my panoramic image. So if we want to test this out, we could always go to Window and choose VR View. And this opens up our little VR View panel here. We can make this larger, of course. And once we launch VR View, it's going to actually render this out for us. Now, right now, this is not a texture. This is just a photograph that's being placed on here. So if I move around, you can see that it just acts as like this sheer plane, right? The reason for that is because we have not marked this photograph as a texture yet. So if we go down here, this is something that is unique to VR documents in Animate. If we choose this item here, this is going to mark the specific layer as a texture. And then if we refresh, then there we go. Now I can look around and see all the different things around this lake bed here. And it works out really well, right? So this is sort of like the easiest way to create a textured background for virtual reality is just to, just to use a photograph that you took. I took this on my Pixel 3 using the Pixel camera. You just choose, panoramic photo mode, and it prompts you to scan all this stuff in with your camera. And it creates a panoramic image for you. So again, we don't want to actually do that though. So I'm going to delete that item there because we want to draw in our own background for this. And to start that out, what I'm going to do is go to like 12% instead of 22, just so we can lay out some things very nicely here. So for one thing, my stage is white right now. And with a white stage, it's very bland. So I'm going to change that. I don't know. I usually use black, but you can't even tell, right? So maybe something like blue. I want it to be pretty happy looking because 2020 is over, which is awesome. Maybe 18%. There we go. It's going to work out pretty well. So for my texture layer, I can put in, anything that I want here. So I don't know. Maybe the first thing I'll do is go to my view menu here, and I want my snapping to be on. I want to snap to my grid. And the reason I want to snap to my grid is because if you think about this cylinder, right, we're going to have a seam. And the seam is, of course, this edge here and this edge right there. So anything that we draw, in order to make sure that we're actually, have this nice seamless texture, we need to be aware of how things fall on each side. So snapping to the grid can be very helpful here. I'm also going to show my grid so I can see it really well. You can see the grid is overlaid here. And what I'm going to do for super basics here is just choose my rectangle tool. I'm going to create it with no stroke whatsoever. And for a fill, let's choose, I don't know. I think I'm going to go kind of wild here with the colors. So I'm going to choose a violet. And there we go. We've got this snapping to, or at least it should be snapping to these different grid settings. So, of course, the farther out you are, the less effective your snap is going to be. And that's kind of what happened here. So my width for this, if we look inside of my document properties, we can see it's 5871. So I want this to match. So 5830, nah, 5871. And, sometimes in recent versions of Animate, and by recent, I mean like the past, I don't know, past couple years, right? It's been a little fudgy when you go through and try to get something really specific in terms of these things. So you can see it doesn't quite go 5871. So if I just make it a little more, that's going to work too. It overlaps a little bit, but we can always turn on the clip outside of stage, and we're going to get it right there. All right. So now I've got something, right? And if I go into my VR view, hit refresh again. Now, if I move this from side to side, you can see there's no seam. However, there's no variance in what we have going on here either. So it's really difficult to see, anything. It all looks the same. You can't tell that I'm like moving stuff around. So what we need to do is add additional content to this. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in a bit. This at least establishes these little pieces for me. What I'm going to do now, though, is create some ovals. So one thing that Animate's really good at, because it does so well with shapes, is it's really good at working with shapes, right? It's part of the whole Flash aesthetic. And actually, I mean, something that I've considered since on December 31st, right? That was the sort of kill date for Flash Player in the web browser, right? Flash Player in the web browser is officially no longer supported, no more updates. However, what is supported, or what hasn't quite happened yet, is Adobe's put this little kill switch into Flash Player that is apparently going to activate on January 12th, which is next Tuesday, I think. And when that happens, basically Flash Player is not going to be able to render content or run or anything anymore. So I was thinking of next week, the day after, actually doing a, just a little thing around Flash Player the day after it's the kill switch goes on. I don't know if I'll do that or not, because it's always a hard topic to deal with. But I wish there were more sort of official things around what's going on with Flash Player at the end of this year here, or the end of last year, because it deserves a lot more than it got, right? Anyway, so now you can see we've got an actual kind of landscape here. We've got some nice little weird hills. They look kind of like gumdrops. And I can look around here. I could place things on the hill if I wanted to. I could interact with them in VR and so forth. What I want to do is have a little message around 2021 somewhere around here. So for that, I'm going to go in, I don't know, 75%. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I can hold down my space bar to just scroll around until I find some place where it might make sense to have that text. And this looks pretty good right here. So there's a couple different ways I could put the text. We've got this as a background, but maybe I'll put another little layer up here for the text itself. So choosing the type tool or text tool, I'm going to use static text in here because in a VR document, you can't use dynamic text at all. And for a character, I'm going to choose a fun font here. Here's something that I used for a project recently, Bad Type. This is an Adobe font. So if you go to fonts.adobe.com, of course, you can get access to this font. And let's change this to something like that. And here I'm going to put $2021. Oh, that's not, yeah, 2021. Very good, Joseph. There we go, 2021. And let's make that a bit bigger. Oops. Let's see, maybe 260. And back this up a little bit. 260 might be a bit too much. 240. Yeah, 240 is pretty good. I'm going to just set this right there. Well, maybe up a little bit. So what's going to happen now says this particular layer that I have my type on is not a text layer, right? This is not a text layer. Or a texture layer. It is a text layer. It's not a texture layer. So if I go into my VR view and I refresh, it's not going to wrap as a texture. However, if I go around here, I can see that it does still distort as I move through here. So there's 2021 right there, right? And move around there. So that's pretty good. It renders nicely. And, something like this, you might want to shimmy up a little bit. Just put it in the sky or something like that. I didn't want it to be exactly sitting on my content there. There we go. Then it just hangs up into the sky. Now, of course, you could mark this as a texture as well. You can mark multiple layers as texture layers. And, you know, depending upon how things work, you can see it changes things a little bit. So it's not as sort of there, right? Oh, hello, Yusuf. How are you today? Just saw your message in there. Welcome. And yeah, so let's see. What are some other ideas? We might be able to do something fun with animated content too. So if I put in, actually, yeah, let's do this. I'm going to put in another layer here, and I want to draw out some fireworks. So to do that, let's actually, and you could do this in a number of different ways, right? We could do this as like a, you know, frame by frame type of thing. We could use tweens. There are a number of different ways to do it. I think I'm going to do a frame by frame, which I don't normally do, simply because I'm not really a frame by frame kind of guy when it comes to this sort of stuff. But for firework, frame by frame might work out okay. So another thing we could do is actually use some of the assets that come in here. So let's try to find, I don't know, props. Some animated props here. See if there is a firework that shows up. And oh yeah, sure enough, there's an explosion. Oh gosh, look at that. Yeah, here's some fireworks right here. So yeah, instead of doing all the work, I mean, I could do fireworks, right? But instead of doing that, I'm actually going to just pull some fireworks in here from the Assets panel. Now, if you don't have your Assets panel open, you can always go to Window, Assets, and that's going to open up your Assets panel. And you got to be using version 2021 of Animate for this, so the latest version. Older versions don't have this capability. So I'm going to put this down here. And layer 3, I should really be naming my layers, but, you know, let's fit in window. So what I'm going to be able to do is just pull that in, see how it looks. All right. So you can see there's a bunch of stuff that's not supported in this doc type, but that's going to be okay. If we view this right now, so I've placed it right there, we could actually refresh. And the thing is, viewing it like this, if we look over, you can see it's not animating in VR view. VR view lets you actually move stuff around. So if we wanted to move this below here, we can see how things sort of shift and move. Let's move that below. And what we're going to have to actually do to see this work is we're going to have to do a test movie in here. So I'm going to hit test movie. It's going to render out in our web browser. And then we can still move it around. Let's try to find that firework. And perhaps it's actually fired off already. I'm not sure. This might be a graphic symbol too, in which case, yeah, this is a graphic symbol. So if you're not used to Animate, graphic symbols work very differently from movie clip symbols in terms of how they're bound to the parent timeline. So with graphic symbols, this particular symbol, if I double click here and look inside, oh, look at that. The fireworks are going way down there. So we're not going to be able to see those anyway. I'm going to have to move those up. But we've got 135 frames here. We're never going to see any of those frames except for frame 1 inside of here because we only have 1 frame in our main timeline. What we would have to do is put 135 frames across the timeline in order to actually see this. Or what we can do is actually create this or change its behavior. So if we change the behavior of this project from graphic to movie clip, a movie clip symbol, its internal timeline does not care about the parent timeline. It's just going to keep on looping and looping and looping and looping as much as it wants, right? So let's look in VR view again, hit refresh, see how things are kind of appearing. Sometimes VR view can take a while to refresh, depending on how much stuff you got in there and the strength of your computer and so forth. So you can see nothing going on still, even with Movie Clip. So what we need to do is hit that button again. And you can see here exporting Webgl Vr. So the thing is, like, even though Webgl and, oh, there we go. Oh, they're way down there still. There they go, though. That's pretty, I don't know. It's not the nicest graphic, but it's okay. And probably most of that's kind of due to, you know, the items being actually disabled, right? Because of VR view. So if you recall, like color effects and things like that actually couldn't be rendered properly. So that's kind of what we got going on. Let's move this guy up a bit and test movie again. And it keeps rendering in that browser. That's okay. Oh, there we go. So now they're going up there, and yeah, they're not the nicest fireworks, but I think they're okay for what we're doing. Let's put this down a little more. Do it again. Of course we can. Oh, I was mentioning the Webgl Vr thing. So this all runs as Webgl. That's the basics for any of the VR stuff inside of Animate. It's all standards-based native web stuff. So like if we go in here and we go to more tools and developer tools. Yeah. So we can see here, you know, here's the GLTF loader. So WebGL, GLTF is a way to package textures and other assets together for WebGL. So this is all WebGL that's running here. And you can see it still has kind of that Flash aesthetic when you're using all the different tools inside of Animate that you're going through and animating stuff. But yeah, the VR stuff can have, you know, animation like this applied to it. It can have interactivity. So there's actually full interactivity that you can place inside of these documents as well. All right, so I've got that guy right here, and he's really hard to see. But what you can do is actually, if I hold down, was it Alt, and drag, I can of course make copies of these things all across our document at different spots. So we could go kind of crazy here. And this is going to ignore the seaming that I was doing before, right? So we were really particular around creating a nice item right here. We'll see if this kind of interferes or not with that. So let's give it a look as soon as it opens up. And it takes a little longer because I do have all these items launching off. But yeah, I mean, you can see how easy it is to just kind of like pull something like this together. And another thing, like they're all shooting off at once, right? Which looks pretty good like this, but, you know, maybe we want to stagger these a little bit. And it's totally possible to do that with just a little bit of tweaking. I think I've got another window open here. Yeah, let's close this guy out from before. All right, so what we would need to do in any of these is simply kind of stagger them. And we can do that in a number of different ways. We can do that through code if we wanted to, or we could do it through the use of just, you know, simply staggering when the fireworks show up across the timeline here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide my background texture once again, so I can see all these little fireworks here. I don't know if you can hear my cat, but my cat is making some meow noises, which is okay. It's always fun to have a cat on the stream with you. So I've got all these guys selected right now, You can see they all have, you probably can't see, it's really hard to tell. But if I zoom in here, zoop, there, you can see they're all selected here. And if I right click on them, I can choose to distribute these to keyframes. So distribute to keyframe. Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. Mistake. Undo. Distribute to layers. So if I distribute these to layers, I now have a little firework in each of these layers. And what I can do is, of course, stagger these. So if I just move these keyframes here and there, I'm able to stagger them all in certain ways. So what this is going to do, of course, is it's going to make them launch at different times. So if I stagger each one of these, they will all be different, which is pretty cool. Now, I don't know how much time I need here. Let's just put everything up to 7 seconds, insert frames. So now I no longer have a, one frame project here. It's multiple frames, which is fine. And with multiple frames, I could always go back and actually treat these objects as graphic symbols if I wanted to. And when something is a graphic symbol, you can, of course, have additional properties. So if I choose this graphic symbol right here, and I go to my object properties, right now it's a movie clip behavior. But if I change that to graphic behavior, I then get this looping ability here where I can choose to start its loop on a certain frame. So I could change the frame. I could stagger this a bit in that way too. So there's multiple ways of doing these things, of course, just like any other piece of creative software. So let's go ahead and test it and see how it looks. Oh, hello. There we are. So we can see they're all sort of staggered now. So they're starting at all different times. There's some over there, there, and maybe they're not quite staggered enough. And let's see how many frames these actually have. I can't quite remember. I think it was like 150 or so. Yeah, 135. So if I go back to stage one, scene one rather, which is my stage. Yeah, so it's, let's add some more frames in here. Let's go 24 seconds. This should stagger things out a little more nicely. And of course, you can play with all this stuff too. You can move things around. And, since I didn't actually create this asset, it's interesting. I don't know exactly, how these things are constructed, and I'm just playing with them. Obviously, with these different glows around them, they were using some color effects and blend modes and things like that before that were actually being used to a nice effect, right? But those things are, of course, disabled when it comes to this particular document type because it is a bit restricted. Now, a lot of these things, let's go ahead and, yeah, so even though I staggered them a bit, they're not nearly as staggered as they need to be to actually be effectively, showing up at different times. So let's move these back a little bit more. And you can see here, this is 1 second, that's 2 seconds. So really, even though I staggered them, it was basically like, hey, just a couple milliseconds different between these different things. So in the long run, it didn't really matter all that much. But with some of these here and there, it should matter a bit more. I hope that makes sense. And again, this is the first stream that I'm doing for 2021. So kind of a celebratory event here. I hope everyone had a nice set of holidays, whether it's Christmas, or Hanukkah, or, just New Year's. Yeah, so we can see they're all kind of coming up at different times now. There we go. That's a pretty good view there. And of course, we could embellish this however we wanted to. And I don't see this as being an overly long stream. I just wanted to demonstrate some of the things that we do inside of VR to create a background texture. And, I added in a little animation and things like that as well. And yeah, works out pretty good. So I think that might be all I'm going to do in terms of that. However, in terms of planning for the future, I'm still going to be doing these every Wednesday at this time, Wednesday at 11 Pacific. That's my plan anyway for the first parts of the year here. So I'm going to be doing that, but I'm also going to be probably doing something a little bit different on Friday. So on Friday, I'm going to do a live stream, at least I plan to, where I'm working in audio, so creating a track. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to be using Audition and also PreSonus Studio One, which I haven't used in a while, but it's an excellent piece of software if you haven't used it. And I'll use Audition to kind of finish it up. It's going to be a 2-hour stream. It's for a little charity event. So that is going to be a little bit different. And we'll see what happens there. It's going to be very different because it's going to be hard to talk over it, right? We're going to be dealing with audio. So there's going to be that. And also I want to make an announcement that I have a new book that I wrote. It's about 350 pages. It's all around mastering Adobe Animate 2021. So this just became available for pre-order late yesterday, and it's from Pact. It's going to be available on Amazon soon too, and other places that you normally buy books. And the idea behind this book is that it goes a bit in more detail around workflows and tooling and best practices and some of the kind of more advanced stuff, like VR, like WebGL, like some stuff around writing games and things that you don't normally get in the books that do exist out there on Animate. We try to go more towards mastering, as it says here, mastering the workflows, mastering the different techniques, and getting a really holistic understanding of how to use Animate, how to extend Animate, and so forth. So that's going to be out probably in February. So keep an eye out for it, please. I'm really happy with it. So that says a lot. So that's a good start to the new year here, 2021. All right. So pretty good. We've been going for about 35 minutes here, and I am going to end the stream here, I think. We did what we wanted to do, and I've got a list of stuff that I need to do, of course, for the start of the spring semester that I'm kind of working through. I'm happy to get back into it, and hopefully I'll be able to get onto campus and teach in person. My university, we have in-person class, and I've got an in-person class this particular semester, but with COVID restrictions and things like that, we have to do everything remote for at least the first few weeks. Things look really good in Colorado. They actually just took our threat level down from red to orange on Monday in a lot of different counties, including the one that I reside in. So our numbers are looking really good. We're really going down. So hopefully that continues and things can get back to normal pretty soon, or at least closer to normal. Anyway, with that, Happy New Year, everyone. Looking forward to doing a lot of these in the new year and just having some fun with different Adobe creative software And yeah, so thanks all.